The cargo hold of the Horizon Dawn smelled like genuine wheat and corn, exactly as it should for a merchant vessel carrying agricultural supplies to the frontier colonies. Tom Richards had insisted on real cargo to make their cover story believable. Even though it meant less space for the hidden weapons and military equipment that made this ship far more dangerous than it appeared. Tom walked through the corridors of his ship, checking on his crew as they went about their daily routines. To any outside observer, they looked like typical merchant sailors, a bit rough around the edges, perhaps, but nothing unusual for people who spent months at a time traveling between distant star systems. What those observers could not see were the tiny scars on each crew member's hands from weapons training, or the way their eyes constantly scanned their surroundings for potential threats. Beth Adams was in the engine room, her coveralls stained with grease as she worked on what appeared to be routine maintenance. In reality, she was installing the final connections for the plasma cannon power feeds that would turn their modest merchant vessel into a warship at a moment's notice. Her engineering degree from the Colonial Military Academy made her overqualified for fixing cargo ship engines, but perfect for the modifications they needed. Will Barnes sat at the navigation console, plotting their course through the Outer Rim territories. His official job was finding the safest and most economical routes for cargo delivery, but his real purpose was guiding them through areas where Keth raiders were known to operate. The alien pirates had been growing bolder in recent months, attacking human ships with increasing frequency. Dave Porter worked in the communications bay, monitoring the standard merchant channels and responding to routine traffic control requests. His casual conversations with other ship captains helped maintain their cover while gathering intelligence about recent pirate attacks in the region. Every piece of information brought them closer to their real target. The 12-person crew had worked together for over a year, perfecting their disguise as harmless traders. Each had volunteered for this mission after losing friends or family to pirate raids in the Outer Rim. The Colonial Defense Command had created this operation specifically to draw out the Keth raiders who had been terrorizing human settlements. Tom reviewed their mission parameters one more time as he returned to the bridge. Intelligence reports indicated that Commander Voss and his 3-ship raiding fleet operated in this sector, targeting cargo vessels that traveled alone. The Keth had developed a reputation for ruthless efficiency, taking valuable cargo and selling captured crew members into slavery on the black market. The Horizon Dawn made a perfect target, apparently underarmed, traveling without escort, and carrying supplies that would be valuable on the frontier worlds. Tom had even made sure their distress beacon was slightly damaged, making it appear that they would be unable to call for help if attacked. Everything about their ship screamed easy prey to predators. Looking for vulnerable victims, hidden beneath the agricultural cargo were military-grade weapons, armor plating, and enough firepower to destroy ships twice their size. The external hull plates could retract in seconds to reveal weapon ports, while the engines could shift from civilian power settings to military thrust that would surprise any attacker. Even their crew quarters had been modified to include emergency weapon lockers and combat stations. 3 days into their journey through the danger zone, their sensors detected the first signs of trouble. Will reported multiple contacts moving through the asteroid field ahead, their energy signatures matching known Keth ship designs. Tom felt a familiar calm settle over him as the moment they had been preparing for finally arrived. The crew moved to their positions without any visible urgency, continuing to act like concerned but helpless merchants. Beth remained in the engine room, ready to activate their hidden systems. Dave prepared to send what would appear to be panic distress calls. Will plotted escape routes that would lead their pursuers exactly where they wanted them to go. Tom opened a channel to the hidden squadron of human destroyers waiting beyond sensor range. Captain Torres of the Iron Wolf confirmed that her ships were in position and ready to spring the trap. The Keth raiders would soon discover that attacking what they thought was a defenseless human cargo ship was the biggest mistake of their criminal careers. The asteroid field ahead provided perfect cover for an ambush, with countless hiding places for pirate ships and obstacles that would limit maneuverability during combat. Tom had chosen this route specifically because it offered advantages to the defenders rather than the attackers, though the Keth would not realize this until it was too late. As the Horizon Dawn approached the danger zone, Tom allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The colonial defense had tried diplomatic solutions with the Keth raiders, offering amnesty in exchange for ending their attacks on human ships. When diplomacy failed, they had attempted to negotiate territorial agreements that would keep the pirates away from human space. None of these peaceful approaches had worked. Now it was time to speak in the only language the pirates understood. The Keth respected strength and feared nothing more than being hunted by a superior predator. After today, every pirate clan in the sector would think twice before attacking human ships, knowing that what appeared to be easy prey might actually be the bait in a carefully planned trap. The final approach to the asteroid field began as Tom gave quiet orders to his crew. Each person knew their role perfectly, from the engineer who would unleash their hidden weapons to the navigator who would guide them through the coming battle. They had trained for this moment, and now they would show the galaxy that humans were far more dangerous than anyone realized. The trap was set, and the hunters were about to become the hunted. Commander Voss felt his predatory instinct sharpen as the human cargo ship appeared on his tactical display. The Horizon Dawn moved with the slow, predictable pattern of a heavily loaded merchant vessel, exactly the kind of easy target his raiding fleet specialized in capturing. After months of successful attacks on human settlements and shipping, this would be just another routine operation. The Keth commander's reptilian features showed satisfaction as he studied the approaching vessel through his ship's sensors. His people had evolved as apex predators on their harsh homeworld, and that hunting instinct served them well in their new career as pirates. Humans, by comparison, seemed weak and disorganized. Scattered across isolated colonies with minimal defenses, his tactical officer reported that the merchant ship showed standard civilian power signatures and carried no visible weapons beyond the basic defensive systems required for protection against space debris. The crew complement appeared to be exactly what would be expected for a cargo vessel of that size, with no indication of military personnel or hidden soldiers. Voss ordered his 3 corvettes into hunting formation, a maneuver his crews had perfected through countless successful raids. The lead ship would approach from directly ahead, forcing the prey to change course, while the other 2 vessels would flank from either side to cut off escape routes. Once trapped, the merchant ship would have no choice but to surrender. The Keth had learned that human traders were particularly vulnerable to psychological pressure, often surrendering at the first sign of superior force rather than risk their lives in hopeless combat. This predictable behavior made them ideal targets for raiders who preferred quick, efficient operations with minimal risk to their own ships and crews. As the distance closed, Voss activated his ship's communication system and broadcast the standard demand for surrender. His translator converted his words into the human language, though he took care to include enough grammatical errors to make the pirates seem less sophisticated than they actually were. Fear was a useful weapon, but overconfidence from prey could sometimes be exploited. The human ship's response came quickly, with the ship changing course in what appeared to be a desperate attempt to escape into the nearby asteroid field. Voss allowed himself a moment of amusement at their predictable reaction. Humans always tried to run rather than fight. Even when escape was impossible, his ships accelerated to intercept, the superior engines easily matching the merchant vessels' best speed. The asteroid field ahead would provide some cover for the cargo ship, but it would also limit their maneuvering options and make escape even more difficult. The Keth had hunted in similar terrain many times before. The pursuit continued for several minutes as the human ship weaved between asteroids, clearly trying to break sensor lock and disappear into the rocky maze. Voss admired their determination, even as he coordinated his ships to maintain perfect positioning around their prey. Experience had taught him to respect the survival instincts of cornered creatures, even weak ones. When the Horizon Dawn finally seemed to accept the hopelessness of their situation and began to slow down, Voss prepared for the boarding action that would follow. His crews were experts at quickly subduing merchant sailors and securing valuable cargo. a skill developed through years of successful raids. Across multiple star systems, the human ship came to a full stop near a large asteroid, apparently accepting defeat. Voss opened the communication channel again, ready to give instructions for the surrender process. But instead of the frightened merchant captain he expected to hear, a calm voice spoke in perfect Keth dialect. Tom's words cut through the static. With deadly precision, informing the raiders that they had 30 seconds to surrender before facing the consequences of attacking humans. The casual confidence in his tone suggested that this was not the helpless prey Voss had expected to capture. Before the Keth commander could process this unexpected development, the human ship began to transform. External panels retracted to reveal weapon ports, engine output increased dramatically, and what had appeared to be a lumbering cargo vessel suddenly moved with the grace and speed of a warship. The first salvo of plasma fire struck Voss's lead corvette before his crew could react, disabling the ship's engines and leaving it drifting helplessly among the asteroids. The precision of the attack showed military training and experience far beyond what any merchant crew should possess. Voss realized with growing horror that his hunting pack had walked directly into a trap. The humans had used their own predatory instincts against them, appearing weak and vulnerable while concealing deadly capabilities. His raiders were no longer the hunters. They had become the prey. His remaining ships scattered as he tried to reassess the tactical situation, but the asteroid field that should have provided cover for his ambush now worked against him. The human vessel moved through the rocky maze with impossible skill, using the terrain to their advantage while his own ships struggled to maneuver in the confined space. The Keth commander's training told him to retreat and regroup, but his pride refused to accept defeat at the hands of supposedly inferior humans. His clan's reputation depended on maintaining their image as unstoppable predators, and fleeing from a single enemy ship would destroy that carefully cultivated fear. Voss ordered his remaining corvettes to attack with everything they had, determined to prove that Keth's superiority was not just a myth. But as the battle intensified, he began to understand that the humans had planned for this reaction as well. Every move his ships made seemed anticipated. Every tactical decision countered before it could be completed. The hunters had indeed become the hunted, and the prey they had chosen was far more dangerous than anyone in the galaxy had realized. The asteroid field erupted into chaos as plasma bolts and missile trails crisscrossed the darkness between massive chunks of floating rock. Beth worked frantically in the engine room, her hands flying over control panels as she rerouted power through systems that were never designed to handle military-grade energy loads. Sweat dripped from her forehead as she bypassed safety protocols and pushed their disguised weapons beyond normal operating parameters. Tom felt the ship shudder under the strain of Beth's modifications, but their plasma cannons now fired with devastating force that surprised even the veteran crew. The Horizon Dawn had been built to look like an ordinary cargo vessel, but beneath that facade lay engineering that could compete with any military ship in the Colonial Defense Fleet. Will demonstrated why he had been selected for this mission as he guided their ship through the asteroid maze with impossible precision. His hands danced across the navigation controls, calculating trajectory changes that seemed to defy physics, while avoiding both enemy fire and the massive rocks that filled their battlefield. Years of experience flying in combat zones had taught him to think in 3 dimensions, while most pilots still struggled with basic maneuvers. Commander Voss watched in growing disbelief as the human ship performed maneuvers that should have been impossible for a vessel of its size and apparent design. His own corvettes, built specifically for combat operations, struggled to match the agility and responsiveness of what he had assumed was a lumbering cargo hauler. The Keth commander ordered his remaining ships to concentrate their fire on the human vessel, hoping to overwhelm their defenses through sheer volume of attacks. But Dave had anticipated this tactic, using the ship's communication systems to jam enemy, targeting sensors while coordinating defensive countermeasures that disrupted incoming missiles. Beth's voice crackled over the internal communication system as she reported successful installation of her latest modification. The ship's mining lasers, originally intended for processing asteroids into valuable minerals, had been reconfigured to superheat chunks of rock into makeshift projectiles. The innovation turned the entire asteroid field into an ammunition supply. For their unconventional weapons, Tom approved the new weapon system with a grim smile, watching as Will positioned their ship to take advantage of the floating debris around them. The first test shot sent a molten chunk of asteroid spinning toward the nearest Keth corvette, the superheated rock punching through enemy shields like they were made of paper. The Keth had never encountered anything like this improvised weapon system, and their tactical computers struggled to calculate defense against projectiles that behaved unlike standard missiles or energy beams. The superheated asteroids moved with unpredictable trajectories, making them nearly impossible to intercept or avoid in the confined space of the asteroid field. Voss realized that his enemy was not just using superior technology, they were adapting their environment into a weapon with the kind of creative thinking that his people had never developed. Keth military doctrine relied on proven tactics and overwhelming force, but these humans were rewriting the rules of combat in real time. Will executed another impossible maneuver, using gravitational slingshot around a massive asteroid to change their ship's vector while maintaining weapons lock on the enemy. The technique required split-second timing and mathematical calculations that would challenge most navigation computers, but he performed it as naturally as breathing. The second Keth corvette tried to ram the human ship in desperation, its commander hoping to end the battle through sheer brute force. But Dave had been monitoring enemy communications and warned Tom of the attack seconds before it began, giving Will enough time to execute an evasive maneuver that sent the Keth ship crashing into the very asteroid they had used for cover. The sound of rending metal echoed through space as the enemy corvette's hull cracked against the unyielding rock, atmosphere venting from multiple breaches while its engines died in a shower of sparks. The crew might survive if they could reach their emergency pods, but their ship was finished as a fighting vessel. Beth reported that their weapons were operating at 150% of normal capacity, a modification that should have been impossible without months of preparation in a proper shipyard. But human engineers had always excelled at making the impossible work when their lives depended on it, and she had learned her trade in the worst combat zones the galaxy could offer. Commander Voss found himself down to a single functional ship, facing an enemy that seemed to grow more dangerous with each passing minute. His tactical officer reported that the human vessel was using the asteroid field like a three-dimensional chessboard, always staying one move ahead of their attempts. To gain tactical advantage, the Keth commander's pride warred with his survival instincts, as he considered his remaining options. Retreat would mean admitting defeat to a supposedly inferior species, but continuing the fight might mean losing his final ship and the lives of his remaining crew members. His people valued honor above life, but they also respected practical wisdom. Tom's voice cut through his thoughts as the human communicated directly with his ship, speaking in flawless Keth dialect that demonstrated far more cultural knowledge than any merchant should possess. The casual tone suggested that this entire battle was proceeding exactly according to plan, and that the humans had been expecting every move the raiders had made. The Horizon Dawn moved into position for what appeared to be a finishing attack. Its improvised weapons trained on the last Keth corvette while escape routes were systematically cut off. Voss realized that his hunters had not just become prey, they had become specimens in a demonstration of human capabilities that would be remembered long after this battle ended. As the final phase of the engagement began, Tom prepared to show the galaxy exactly why attacking humans had been the worst decision the Keth raiders would ever make. Space around the asteroid field shimmered like a heat mirage as advanced stealth systems disengaged and revealed 4 human destroyers that had been waiting in perfect silence. The warships appeared simultaneously, their synchronized decloak, creating a display of military precision that sent ice through. Commander Voss's alien blood. Captain Lisa Torres stood on the bridge of the Iron Volf, her weathered face showing the calm satisfaction of a predator that had successfully completed a hunt. Her destroyer and its 3 sister ships had been tracking the Keth raiders for weeks, gathering intelligence and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The Q-ship operation had provided exactly the opportunity they needed. The Keth commander stared at his tactical display in growing horror as the full scope of the human trap became clear. His raiding fleet had not stumbled into a merchant vessel by accident. They had been carefully guided into this killing ground by an enemy that understood their hunting patterns better than they did themselves. Lisa opened communication channels to the surviving Keth ships, her voice carrying the cold authority of someone who had commanded warships in the bloodiest conflicts the galaxy had ever seen. She had fought against alien invasion fleets, pirate armadas, and rogue military units, earning her reputation through victories that lesser commanders thought impossible. The human destroyers moved with practiced coordination, their engines and weapon systems operating in perfect harmony as they cut off every possible escape route from the asteroid field. Years of joint training and combat experience had forged them into a pack that hunted with the efficiency of apex predators. Voss tried to rally his remaining crew for a final, desperate charge, hoping that Keth courage and superior individual combat skills might somehow overcome impossible odds. But his tactical officer reported that the human ships were positioning themselves with mathematical precision, creating overlapping fields of fire that would destroy any vessel attempting to break through their formation. The 4 destroyers represented the most advanced military technology humanity could produce, each one capable of engaging multiple enemy ships simultaneously while coordinating with its squadron mates. Their crews had been selected from the elite units of the colonial defense, veterans who understood that space combat was won through superior planning rather than individual heroics. Lisa transmitted the complete tactical analysis her ships had compiled during their weeks of surveillance, documenting every crime the Keth raiders had committed in human space. The evidence included detailed records of attack settlements, captured civilians sold into slavery, and merchant crews who had simply disappeared without trace. Commander Voss realized that this was not a random encounter, or even a simple military operation. It was an execution that had been planned with the thoroughness humans brought to everything they considered important. His raiding fleet had been marked for destruction from the moment they decided to prey on human shipping. The Keth commander made one final attempt to negotiate, offering information about other pirate clans and promising to withdraw from human space permanently if his remaining crew could be spared. His words carried the desperation of someone who finally understood the true nature of the species he had chosen as prey. Tom's response from the horizon. Dawn cut through any hope of mercy. With brutal finality, the human Q-ship captain made it clear that the time for negotiation had ended when the first human colony was attacked, and that the only acceptable outcome was the complete elimination of the threat these raiders represented. The destroyer squadron began its final approach with the methodical precision of a military unit that had performed this operation many times before. Each ship knew its role in the coming engagement, from the primary attack vessels to the support units that would ensure no enemy escape to spread word of human capabilities. Lisa coordinated the attack through encrypted channels, her orders brief and professional as she directed her ships into positions that would maximize the psychological impact on any surviving witnesses. The destruction of the Keth raiding fleet needed to send a clear message to every pirate clan in the sector. The alien commander's final moments were spent watching human military doctrine in action, seeing how a species that many considered weak and disorganized could coordinate complex operations across multiple star systems. The trap that had caught his fleet represented planning and resource allocation on a scale that challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about human capabilities. As the destroyer weapons charged for their final salvo, Voss understood that his fleet had not been defeated by superior technology or overwhelming numbers. They had been out-hot and outplanned by a species that treated warfare as a science rather than an art, approaching each engagement with the methodical thoroughness of persistence hunters. The Keth had assumed that their natural aggression and individual combat prowess would be enough to overcome human resistance. But they had failed to understand that humans fought as a coordinated pack rather than as individual warriors. This collective approach to combat had served humanity well during their rise to galactic prominence. The four destroyers opened fire in perfect synchronization, their weapons creating a web of energy that left no escape routes for the remaining pirate vessels. The Keth raiders, who had terrorized human space for months, were eliminated in seconds, their ships reduced to debris that would serve as a warning to others. Captain Torres watched the tactical display as the last enemy contacts disappeared, then opened communications with Tom aboard the Q-ship. The operation had been a complete success, eliminating the immediate threat while demonstrating to the galaxy that attacks on human interests would be met with swift and decisive retaliation. The pack had successfully completed its hunt, and the word would spread quickly through the criminal underworld that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had realized. The salvage operation took 3 days to complete, with human crews methodically extracting data cores and intelligence files from the destroyed Keth vessels. Each piece of recovered information revealed new details about the extensive criminal network that had been preying on frontier settlements across multiple sectors of space. Tom supervised the intelligence gathering from the bridge of the Horizon Dawn, watching as his crew worked alongside specialists from the destroyer squadron to catalog evidence of pirate activity stretching back over 5 years. The scope of the criminal operation was larger than anyone had suspected, involving dozens of alien species and hundreds of individual raiders. The databases recovered from Commander Voss's flagship contained detailed records of every successful raid, including the locations of hidden bases, supply routes, and communication protocols used by pirate clans throughout the region. The information represented an intelligence windfall that would allow human forces to dismantle the entire criminal network over the coming months. Beth worked with the destroyer crews to analyze the technical modifications found on the Keth ships, discovering that the pirates had been using stolen military technology to enhance their vessels beyond standard specifications. The evidence suggested coordination with corrupt officials in several alien governments, adding political dimensions to what had appeared to be simple criminal activity. Captain Torres coordinated the transmission of intelligence reports to Colonial Defense Headquarters, where analysts would cross-reference the new information with existing files on criminal organizations. The operation had provided more than just tactical victory. It had exposed a conspiracy that threatened human interests across a significant portion of known space. Will plotted the locations of pirate bases revealed in the captured data, creating a comprehensive map of criminal activities that extended far beyond the Outer Rim territories. The network included supply depots, slave markets, and communication relays that had allowed various pirate clans to coordinate their operations across vast distances. The news of the Keth fleet's destruction began spreading through underground channels within hours of the battle's conclusion. Smugglers, arms dealers, and information brokers carried the story to criminal hideouts throughout the sector, each telling embellished versions that grew more dramatic with each repetition. Word reached the Vothan crime syndicate first, delivered by a freighter captain who had witnessed the aftermath of the battle while passing through a nearby system. The insectoid crime lords immediately convened emergency meetings to discuss the implications of organized human military operations in what they had considered safe territory. The Hive pirates received confirmation of the Keth destruction through their network of informants, prompting their queens to issue new directives regarding engagement with human vessels. The insectoid raiders had built their reputation on swarm tactics and overwhelming numbers, but the prospect of facing coordinated human fleet actions gave them serious concerns about their traditional strategies. Dave monitored communication intercepts as word of the battle spread through criminal networks, documenting how different alien species reacted to news of human military capabilities. The psychological impact was already exceeding their most optimistic projections, with several pirate clans reportedly abandoning planned operations against human targets. Independent raiders throughout the sector began receiving warnings from their contacts to avoid engagement with any human vessels, regardless of how vulnerable they might appear. The story of the merchant ship that transformed into a warship had become legendary among criminals who prided themselves on their ability to identify easy targets. Tom reviewed after-action reports from the other ships in the operation, noting how perfectly the coordination had worked between the Q ship and its hidden escort. The tactical doctrine developed for this mission would become the template for future operations against organized crime in frontier territories. The political implications extended beyond simple law enforcement, as various alien governments quietly began reviewing their policies toward human expansion in the Outer Rim. The demonstration of human military planning and coordination capabilities had impressed even species that considered themselves superior to the upstart humans. Lisa Torres filed her squadron's report with recommendations for expanded Q-ship operations throughout the frontier regions, arguing that the psychological impact of the mission justified the resources invested in such elaborate deceptions. The pirates had learned that attacking humans carried consequences they had never imagined. Intelligence analysts at Colonial Defense Headquarters worked around the clock to process the captured data, identifying priority targets for follow-up operations that would systematically dismantle the criminal networks revealed by the Keth databases. The single battle had provided enough intelligence to keep military forces busy for months. The ripple effects of the operation continued expanding as various criminal organizations reassessed their risk calculations regarding human targets. What had begun as a simple anti-piracy mission was reshaping the balance of power throughout several sectors of space. Tom prepared the Horizon Dawn for its next mission, knowing that the success of this operation would lead to additional Q-ship deployments wherever human interests faced organized threats. The concept of using apparent weakness to mask deadly strength appealed to military planners who understood the value of psychological warfare. As the human ships prepared to depart the asteroid field, Tom reflected on the broader lesson that would spread throughout the galaxy. Humans had appeared vulnerable when they first ventured into space, scattered across isolated colonies with limited military resources. But that appearance had been deceiving. The species that had survived as persistent hunters on a dangerous homeworld had brought those same instincts to the stars, learning to coordinate complex operations across vast distances while maintaining the patience to wait for the perfect moment to strike. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humans were not the easy prey they had seemed. The Horizon Dawn set course for its home base, ready to begin preparation for the next mission that would demonstrate to potential enemies the dangerous mistake of underestimating human determination and ingenuity in the dark spaces between the stars.